Hi guys, it's Brett. Thanks for dropping by my channel. So this is it, the final run up until Christmas. Hanukkah is in full swing. I hope you're all having a really wonderful week and not stressing too much about the holidays. So my favorite time of year, primarily because of all the end of the year lists that come up from everything from video games to television shows to movies, and of course, the reason we're here today, books. So I've done two lists already over on Instagram. One was for favorite nonfiction of the year. I'm calling it favorite, not best, because my best might be your worst. And favorite audiobooks of the year. So if either of those subjects interests you, please head over to my Instagram page and check those out. Then the next day or so, possibly tomorrow, I am going to start counting down my final 10 of the year. Today on Instagram, I also posted my 10 honorable mention books, which frankly, I was saying could have also served as my finalist because this was such a stellar year for books for me. Right now, I'm about 134 books in, and it was quite hard to narrow it down, but the final 20 I love, and any one of them could have been interchanged with the final 10. So today, yes, I want to talk about favorite LGBTQIA titles of the year. I read 31 books that would fall under this umbrella of LGBTQIA, whether it was characters or themes or whatever. And from that, I've narrowed it down to 9 that I want to talk about. One of these has already been put on a list today of, like I said, my honorable mentions. 2 others will be on my final list. I'll let you try to guess what those are. So, without further ado, let's get started. The first book, wait a minute, I just have to pause this for a second and say, I realize it looks like I'm about to massage my mustache. I'm trying this new mic system out, and so we'll have to see how it sounds and how it works out. So this is the first thing for me. I like the idea of it. However, clipping this on me today kind of felt like I was making love to a woolly mammoth. I meant the caterpillar. Do you remember the caterpillar? Anyway. All right, so here we go. First book is a young adult book that, young adult, it's more of a teen book, not really young adult, but a sci-fi teen book, which actually came out last year, but I finally read this year, and it so surprised me. It's called The Darkness Outside Us. First of all, very kind of sexy cover by Eliot Schrefer. The premise of this is, imagine a Russian and an American get thrust together on a ship on a mission to find, because they get a distress signal and they're trying to find out what's going on this planet. So they have to work together because there's problems in the ship, and they begin to fall in love. That's a side note. It's not really a love story, so bear with me. But what begins to reveal is batshit crazy, and it's really surprising, really well done. I never saw where this was going, but a really fun, solid book. If you are into the sci-fi genre at all, I think you'd really like this, but really enjoyed this. That's number 1. Number 2 was also a book that came out in December of last year. So I feel like, and I read it right away at the beginning of this year, only because my bookstore didn't even have it. I'd heard about it. If it was a book that came out this year, because generally I stick to the year of the book for my best of list, but this would have absolutely probably been my favorite, or one of the top 3 at least. Tell Me How to Be by Neel, Patel. I loved this book so much. It is about an young Indian gay man and his mother, who it's both of their stories, and the stories intersect. His story is really about his sexuality and coming to terms with who he is. His mother's story is about being an immigrant, and her story, and the secrets that they both hold on to and what it does to them. I loved this so much. It is full of, these two characters are so complicated and real. I bawled my eyes out by the end of this thing. I thought it was really beautiful done. The mother's story is heartbreaking, but also just so rich and fantastic and layered and leveled. I also was in, for whatever this is worth, Target a week ago, and this is their pick for December, the paperback of it. So I'm so glad to see it like getting the attention it deserves, and it deserves all the attention. It's just a really, really, really fantastic book. Okay, another book that I have talked about, I know in here previously, which I just absolutely adored, was Greenland by David Santos Donaldson. Greenland, I was getting ready for the movie The Policeman to come back out, which is, you know, loosely based on E.M. Forster's life. So is this. There seems to be so much about E.M. Forster circling right now. But what this deals with is a black writer who is trying to write the story about a Moroccan man who was one of E.M. Forster's lover. So the book alternates between that story and the writer's story, who has basically locked himself in his room and said, I'm going to get this story done. I have him on a deadline. I have to get it finished. And what kind of happens. What I loved about this book so much is it takes huge swings and where the book goes. And at the time when I originally reviewed it, I said there is a theatricality to the book, which I don't always read in a novel. It reminded me weirdly, tonally, of like Angels in America in terms of its scope and where it goes. I also alternated this with audio, and if you're an audiobook person, I think it won an audiobook award. It's a fantastic reading of the book, but it is really intriguing, very, very smart, a fantastic debut. Kingdom of Sand by Andrew Holleran. It's so funny that I give you a book by someone who's making a debut, and then there's Andrew Holleran, who's been around for quite some time. Beautiful book. This reminded me in some ways of Elizabeth Strout, like gay Elizabeth Strout. And by that I mean Elizabeth Strout takes the minutia of living, just the moment, and she does it so effortlessly that you kind of forget you're reading something so simplistic, but so absolutely on the nose and beautiful. This is about an elderly gay man living in Florida, his relationship with a dear friend of his who is older, who is dying, and kind of what happens. There's nothing monumental. It's a memory piece. It's very simple. I say nothing much happens only because I think sometimes people's expectations are there has to be some huge event, and that isn't what this book is necessarily. What it is a beautiful meditation on remembrance, on grief, on getting older, on as aging as a gay man, all of these things, and as a single gay man, I should say. It's beautifully, beautifully, beautifully written. It's a great book. All right. I know I've talked about this a lot on here. I really just loved it. My Government Means to Kill Me by Rasheed Newson. This was one of the two books that came out following this one, a young black man who moves to New York City in the 80s, gets involved with the creation of ACT UP, and his story. What Rasheed Newson does that's such a great device is fills the book with footnotes about all of the characters, events, places, people that this character is coming across, real life people. And it really makes it stand out and pop. It's a really, really, really wonderful story. I just loved it. All right, Army of Lovers by K.M. Soehnlein. This is about a gay man who moves to New York in the mid-'80s, gets involved with ACT UP, That's what you were just talking about. Yes, it is just what I was talking about. Crazily enough, 2 books came out the same year. This is just a white guy who moves to New York in the 80s and gets involved with ACT UP, and really should have intersected with the character from Rasheed Newsom's. But it just goes to show you can have 2 writers with a similar idea or a similar time frame who write radically different books, and they are, and that's what I love so much. I've never read K.M. Soehnlein before, but what I loved was the world he created. I loved his friends. He deals much more with family issues in here that kind of inform his character, as well as more, I don't want to say love stories, but there's much more kind of interpersonal relationships in this than the Rasheed Newsom. So there's that. But again, really great book from a small indie press. So please support small indie presses, and this is a really wonderful book to get. The next book is a nonfiction book, which was on my list for favorite nonfiction of the year. Kathryn Schultz, Lost and Found. Kathryn Schultz is a Pulitzer Prize winning writer, journalist. And this slim but really powerful memoir deals with both the loss of her father and the finding of the great love of her life. Both of which are kind of wonderful meditations on both, and what falls in between, and how 2 very different things, emotions, grief, love, can kind of exist side by side. It's really wonderful. One of these things that you'll put down and think about and say, wow, that is so incredible what she just said, or that's, you'll find yourself marking passages. A really, really, really interesting book, a really interesting woman. Loved this one. Siren Queen by, I don't know if it's Nghi. I feel terrible about that. But how does this look? So I'm not sure how to pronounce her last name. She wrote a book 2 years ago, which was a queer updating of a queer, I should say not updating, it was just a queer version of The Great Gatsby. In Siren Queen, which I did not read, I should say, but when I saw this cover, I was like, wow, this looks amazing. And then I read the book and I absolutely fell in love with it. What she does is she loosely bases the story of Anna May Wong, considered the first Asian American film star. But what she does is she has a definite queer bent on the whole thing. There's a whole fantasy element to this, which feels like something that Ryan Murphy would get his hands on and really twist it up. But it's all about Hollywood. It's all about the closet in Hollywood and actors hiding in the closet, but it's also about race. It's a really, really, really interesting book. Also has one of my favorite covers of the year, but I'm definitely going to go back and read Chosen of the Beautiful because she's a really, really lovely writer. And my last book of the year was actually one of the first books I read this year, which is Young Mungo by Douglas Stuart. This book feels like a continuation of Shuggie Bain, for those of you who read Shuggie Bain. This is kind of like Shuggie Bain grows up and falls in love. But it's a kind of bittersweet romance because the troubles are going on. It's a clash between the Catholics and the Protestants, and the young man that he falls in love with is Protestant. But it's a really great book. It almost made my top 10. It made my honorable mention. And I think one of the only reasons, frankly, is because I read it so early. I was trying to remember everything about it and couldn't quite. And I remembered it made quite an impact on me. I don't know that it made the same impact that Shuggie Bain had on me. And certainly it's powerful. There is a very kind of overwhelming brutality with this particular book that Stuart does not shy away from at all. And I would definitely give content warnings to anyone who has sensitivity to any kind of sexual violence. But I did think it was a great book, and certainly in terms of LGBTQIA literature, it is like tops. Stuart is just, I think he's an amazing writer. So there they were. There they are. There they were. There they go. The 9 books that I featured today. I don't know if you read any of them. Please let me know in the comments. I would love to know. I'm going to start counting down my top 10 books in the next few days. So please check back for that. I hope you're all having a great week. Thanks for stopping by. And as always, if you like what you've seen today, please like and subscribe below. Thanks so much. Bye.